I'm Michael, and you're listening to Investor Voice, Ferrari. Just saying the name brings up all kinds of images: sleek, fire-red cars screaming down the track, engines that sound like thunder, a logo that screams power and prestige. It's not just a brand, it's a legend, worth over $80 billion. But underneath all that flash and glory, there's a story most people never hear. A story packed with heartbreak, obsession, and a man who just wouldn't let life break him, no matter how hard it tried. This story starts with a boy from a family of blacksmiths. He didn't have fancy schooling. He couldn't even land a job at a car factory. Before he was out of his teens, he lost his father and his brother, both gone in a single brutal year. He was left with nothing but a stubborn will to survive. Somehow, this same kid would end up building the most dominant racing team the world has ever seen, and with it, he'd create one of the most coveted car companies on the planet. But there's a darker side too. Horrific crashes, drivers who felt like sons and died chasing speed, and a man so driven he was called a god who devoured his own children. I'm Michael, and you're listening to Investor Voice. Let's talk about Enzo Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari was born on February 18, 1898, in Modena, Italy, a place with more history than most countries. His dad owned a blacksmith shop that did well enough for the family to live comfortably. But Enzo, he wanted nothing to do with that life. What really lit him up was cars. His family was one of the first in town to buy a car, noisy, unreliable, but completely mesmerizing to Enzo. That curiosity exploded the day his dad took him and his brother Dino to their first race. Enzo was only 10. Back then, racing was pure madness. Drivers tore down bumpy dirt roads, no barriers, no seat belts, no helmets, just guts and luck. People expected crashes. They expected death. But for Enzo, it was magic. Right then and there, he decided he'd become a race car driver. Life had other ideas. In 1916, his father died of pneumonia. The family business fell apart. Then Enzo's brother Dino got sick fighting in World War I and died too. Enzo was 18, broke, and alone. He grabbed any job he could just to scrape by. Then the army drafted him, stuck him in the freezing mountains shoeing mules, and as if that wasn't enough, the Spanish flu hit. Enzo caught it, nearly died, but somehow pulled through while so many didn't. When the war finally ended, Enzo came home with nothing. He packed up what little he had and went to Turin, the heart of Italy's car industry, dead set on becoming a race car driver. He tried to get a job at Fiat. They shot him down without a second thought. To them, he was just another uneducated kid from Modena. Out of options, Enzo burned through his savings. He eventually found work in a tiny auto repair shop, hard, dirty work that left him empty. Then, finally, luck showed up. He met Ugo Sivocci, a former racer who saw something in Enzo and introduced him to CMN, a small-time car maker looking for a test driver. Enzo landed the job. CMN was tiny, but they built race cars. Enzo saved every penny he could, bought his first race car, a CMN Model 1520, and in 1919, at just 21, he entered his first hill climb in Parma. He went up against drivers in top-of-the-line Fiats and Alfas, while he was stuck in an old, outdated car. Still, he finished fourth. It wasn't a win, but it was enough to keep him hungry. He tried his luck at the Targa Florio in Sicily, a brutal race through mountains and misery. His car broke down, snow slammed the course, and he finished dead last. Frustrated but undeterred, he traded for a better car and went back to Parma, where he took second. Suddenly, people started to notice him. He was still an outsider, though. Racing was a rich man's game, and Enzo was just a working guy with used equipment. But he wasn't about to give up. Enzo's rising fame sparked a bold idea. In 1920, he reached out to Alfa Romeo and landed a spot on their elite racing team. Just like that, he switched from outdated clunkers to racing alongside legends. His debut for Alfa at the Targa Florio went well. He took second place. 3 years later, he finally tasted real victory. That same year, he met Countess Paolina Baracca, whose son, Italy's greatest World War I fighter ace, had painted a prancing horse on his plane for luck. The Countess urged Enzo to use the horse on his own cars, convinced it would bring him the same fortune. Enzo agreed, setting the horse against a yellow background, a nod to his hometown of Modena. That symbol, of course, would become the heart of Ferrari. While driving for Alfa, Enzo pushed to bring in his longtime friend, Ugo Savocci. It was a smart move. Savocci racked up big wins and quickly made a name for himself. But racing was always risky. Not long after his biggest triumph, Ugo died in a crash while testing a new car. The loss hit Enzo hard. It was his first time losing someone so close to the sport. It forced him to think twice about his future as a driver. Enzo kept racing for a few more years, but his attention started drifting. He'd opened a few Alfa Romeo dealerships, and in 1923, he married Laura Garello. With new things to juggle, he began stepping back from the driver's seat and leaned into managing Alfa's racing program. Turns out, he was a natural. Under his lead, Alfa Romeo's cars dominated Grand Prix racing for years. But the good times didn't last. By the late 1920s, money got tight. Alfa and other manufacturers started pulling out of racing to save cash, and team morale tanked. Drivers began forming their own independent squads, called Scuderia, or stables. Most were run by rich amateurs who didn't really know what they were doing. Enzo saw an opening. In 1929, he started his own team, Scuderia Ferrari. He was 32, setting up shop in Modena, and proudly made the prancing horse the team's logo. Though technically independent, Scuderia Ferrari worked as Alfa's unofficial racing branch. Enzo hammered out a sweet deal. He got Alfa cars at wholesale, and any losses fell on Scuderia Ferrari, while wins boosted Alfa's reputation. Everyone won. To bankroll his dream, he convinced top suppliers like Pirelli and Shell to sponsor the team in exchange for their names on the cars. This kind of sponsorship, which he helped pioneer, is still a pillar of racing today. Enzo drew top drivers to his cause, and right out of the gate, Scuderia Ferrari won 9 of 22 races in their first season. Soon they were grabbing victories at the Targa Florio, the Mille Miglia, and Grand Prix events all over Europe. The team quickly became one of the continent's biggest and best. Life got even better. In 1932, Enzo's first son, Alfredo, nicknamed Dino after Enzo's late brother, was born. That same year, Enzo finally hung up his helmet and focused fully on running the team. But not everything ran smoothly. Tensions with Alfa Romeo began to simmer. Money was still tight, and Alfa got stingy with their best cars. Worse, a new threat loomed from Germany. Mercedes and Auto Union, with bottomless Nazi funding, started crushing the competition. Ferrari's results slipped. Top drivers left for teams with deeper pockets. By 1937, Alfa Romeo bought out and shut down Scuderia Ferrari. Enzo was put in charge of the new operation, but after 2 frustrating years, he got the boot. After 2 decades of loyalty, he felt completely betrayed. To make matters worse, Alfa barred him from putting his own name on any cars for 4 years. Even with that setback, Enzo knew what he'd built mattered. Scuderia Ferrari had racked up 144 wins in 225 races, and he walked away with a settlement worth over £1 million lire. With that, he set his sights on something bigger. In 1939, he launched his own company, Auto Avio Costruzioni, right back in Modena. He couldn't have guessed where it would lead. Enzo hired brilliant engineers to design a race car that was both fast and beautiful, the Model 815. 2 of them lined up at the 1940 Brescia Grand Prix and actually led for a while, even setting the fastest laps. Then, disaster. Both cars broke down before the finish. Enzo didn't know it then, but this would be the first and last race for Auto Avio Costruzioni for quite some time. When World War II heated up, no one cared about racing or fancy cars anymore. Enzo Ferrari got a visit from Mussolini, who wanted him to build equipment for the military. Enzo agreed, moved his factory from Modena to Maranello, and that's where Ferrari's story really took root. During the war, the factory secretly cranked out gear for both Mussolini's regime and the Nazis. Enzo played the game. He joined the fascist party back in 1934, showed up at parades in uniform, and made sure to stay on the right side of whoever was in charge. If he hadn't, they probably would have just taken his business away. At the same time, he quietly kept in touch with socialist groups, hedging his bets so he'd land on his feet no matter who won. One thing's clear: Ferrari made money during the war. The company got pretty big off military contracts. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Allied bombers hit the factory twice, in 44 and 45, and left it in ruins. After the war, Italy was a mess and desperate to rebuild. Enzo didn't care about that. Instead, he risked everything to go back to the one thing he truly loved: racing. He called up his old friends and top engineers, gave them a challenge: create a new race car, the first one to carry his own name, the Ferrari 125S. They built it with a slick V12 engine that could hit 130 miles an hour. Enzo showed it off for the first time at the Circuito di Piacenza in 1947. It ran circles around Maserati, BMW, even Alfa Romeo, his old rivals. But with just 3 laps left, the engine sputtered out and the car had to quit. Enzo shrugged it off, called it a promising failure, and kept his hopes up. Just 2 weeks later, a Ferrari crossed the finish line first at the Rome Grand Prix. By the end of the year, they'd won 6 out of 14 races. But racing was insanely expensive, and Enzo knew it. If he wanted to keep the team on the track, he needed money coming in. So he started making luxury sports cars for the public, Ferraris for the road. He teamed up with an old Alfa buddy to sell cars in America too. Europe was still recovering, but America was booming. Luigi Cinetti, his partner, was a master salesman. He marketed Ferraris not just as cars, but as collectibles, almost like pieces of art. He raced them in big American events, turning heads and building the brand's reputation. There was one race Cinetti wanted more than anything: the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He asked Enzo for cars and mechanics, but Enzo said no. He thought the cars weren't ready. If Cinetti really wanted it, he'd have to buy a Ferrari himself. So he did. In 1949, Cinetti entered Le Mans as a privateer, driving a Ferrari 166 MM. He stunned everyone by winning the whole thing. That victory put Ferrari on the map, boosted sales, and set the stage for the brand's golden years in the 1950s. With new money flowing in, Enzo doubled down on racing. Ferrari conquered the Mille Miglia, the Targa Florio, and Le Mans again. Cars like the 166 MM and the 250 Testarossa turned into legends, not just for their speed, but for their looks. Funny thing, those designs didn't come from Ferrari's own staff. Instead, Enzo partnered with Pininfarina, a coach builder known for their Italian flair. Pininfarina handled the styling, freeing Enzo to pour all his energy back into racing. The partnership worked so well that Pininfarina ended up designing almost every Ferrari road car until 2017. Iconic models like the 250 GT California and the F12 Berlinetta all came from them. As Ferrari fever took off, Enzo made a clever move. He only built a limited number of cars each year. That kept demand sky high and made sure Ferraris stayed exclusive and expensive. It's a trick the company still uses. But for Enzo, the road car business was just a way to fund his racing dreams. He didn't care much for selling cars to the rich. He just wanted to win. While the racing team was on top of the world, Enzo's personal life fell apart. His son Dino had fought a rare form of muscular dystrophy since he was a kid. By his 20s, things got much worse. Doctors said it couldn't be cured, but Enzo refused to give up. He searched everywhere for answers. Dino was just as stubborn and passionate as his father. Even from his sickbed, he helped design a new V6 engine, but he never got to see it succeed. In June 1956, at just 24, Dino died. Enzo never really recovered from that loss. Dino's death hit Enzo hard, so hard that people around him said he was never the same again. He pulled away, kept his distance, got colder. To honor his son, he started wearing dark sunglasses almost everywhere, and every morning for years stopped by Dino's grave before heading to work. It was his private ritual. But death wasn't done with Enzo. In racing, tragedy always lurked just around the bend, and Enzo was about to learn that the pursuit of victory could turn brutal. By the mid-1950s, British teams like Cooper and Lotus were shaking up Formula One with a bold new idea: mid-engined cars. These machines were lighter, nimbler, and just faster than Ferrari's old-school front-engined beasts. Most teams jumped on the new trend, not Enzo. He refused to budge. He believed raw horsepower mattered most, and that his drivers, with enough guts and talent, could close any gap. That stubborn confidence cost him dearly. The pressure to win made his drivers take bigger risks. The cars got twitchier, harder to handle, and the crashes started piling up. The worst came at the 1957 Mille Miglia, a 1,000-mile dash on public roads. Alfonso de Portago, driving a Ferrari at breakneck speed, blew a tire. The car flew off the road and into the crowd. De Portago, his co-driver, and 9 spectators died, 5 of them kids. It shocked the whole country. Authorities charged Enzo with 11 counts of manslaughter. The next year, he lost 2 more young stars on the track. Italy, the same country he'd made proud, turned on him. People hated him. Even the Vatican piled on. A church leader accused Ferrari of sacrificing lives for glory, comparing him to Saturn, the god who ate his own children just to stay alive. Things got so tense that the Italian government almost banned motorsports completely. In the end, Enzo and his lawyers fought back, arguing that the real problem was the lack of safety rules and terrible track conditions. Racers still tore down narrow public roads with no seat belts, no barriers, and barely any rules. Ferrari's team had begged for better safety for years, but no one listened. Eventually, the church dropped its claims, and in 1961, the courts cleared Enzo of all charges. Even with court battles, the loss of drivers, and runaway costs, Ferrari clawed his way back. In 1961, the team won both the Formula One and World Sports Car Championships. A huge comeback, but it almost finished them. The money was gone. Ferrari's car sales couldn't cover the costs of racing anymore. Bankruptcy loomed. That's when an American giant came knocking. Ferrari's cars were gorgeous and built by hand, but expensive to make. He sold them for a profit, sure, but most buyers paid in installments, so the money trickled in slowly. Meanwhile, racing costs soared. Sometimes, Ferrari had to skip races just to keep the doors open. Luca wasted no time. He poured money into revamping Ferrari's sports cars, brought in top engineers, and signed Michael Schumacher, a German driver who was already a legend in the making. Together, they built a dynasty. Schumacher won 5 straight drivers' championships for Ferrari from 2000 to 2004. A run that blew away everything that had come before. But Luca didn't just stick to racing. He turned Ferrari into a global brand. Merchandise, watches, theme parks, you name it. Profits soared. For the first time,